All right, so for you John Deere guys who are running the S series even still, this setup has been a nuisance ever since it came out. And usually what happens is, the rod wears out, then of course it falls apart and you lose all the hardware. And for some reason what John Deere has decided to do is add these really large washers in between, right? So this is how it is originally, and I don't know why, other than I'm thinking they did this to create this time bomb that this rod really is, because they sorry for the camera work here, they did machine out this section to fit this bushing perfectly. So you take the washers out and you put the bushing in directly, and that stabilizes the rod a huge bunch, or like a whole lot. Because what happens with the washers in there, well, you know how you have there's tarp straps and stuff, or buckles, they work with this system. It does this, and as you shift all this hardware, so between this piece, the washers, and that bushing, you shift it all, and that creates a choking point and high friction on that rod, and then it will wear out. Whereas if it's like this, it cannot do that. And yeah, you are kind of pushing onto this plate a little bit more. Once it's all together, you just have to make sure you find the sweet spot and leave it like that. And then I'll include the picture of the piece that should be in here, which is just, I think it's a 1/2 inch hose that I always put in. And you don't need to estimate, you cut it basically 90% of the length of this. So, because you don't compress the spring further than that anyways, but put a 1/2 inch hose in there over the rod, and that will stabilize the spring, because the spring is also harder than the shaft, and it can cut through the threads there. So between that, the spring, and the washers here, that should be sufficient to prevent that from wearing out. So then here we are with the assembly all put together, and this is kind of the idea. The tension indicator basically fits in here like this. Could be turned the other way as well, but it gets to the closer to the belt, and this is sufficient. And then usually what happens is, see how the rod is still touching the bottom here? Oh, hang on. There. It's got a little bit of a gap now, whereas before it was really forcing that piece into the rod, and this is where the notch starts when it wears out, and gets worse because once there's a notch there, it doesn't travel anymore, right? So where's that out? No, here we go. And the reason why you don't want to cut that hose too long is because we need a little bit of play in here as the belt tensions and untensions. And yeah, just use the washers you took off from there, put them on the back, and use them as a friction modifier so that the nut isn't digging into the washer. And yeah, it actually threads nicer too. And the tension should be at the end of the flag here, like in the notch. Let me get closer. Right there, not there, but there. Make it tighter than rather than loose. Always tighter rather than loose.